Okay, let's just jump right in with a question that, well, it'll probably surprise you. Did you know Malaysia has a space program?
No, seriously, think about it for a second. When I say Malaysia, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For most people, you're probably picturing, famous landmarks, maybe some absolutely incredible food, or even its huge natural resources.
Yeah, you're probably thinking of the Petronas Twin Towers, right? Or maybe delicious food like nasi lemak, or palm oil and durians. And hey, you're not wrong, but what if I told you that the reality of Malaysia also includes an astronaut who's been to space, a whole fleet of satellites circling the globe, and yeah, a dedicated national space agency? It's true. So how did this all happen? Look, this wasn't some kind of vanity project, trying to keep up with NASA or anything like that. Malaysia's journey to space actually started from a really practical place. It was all about nation-building needs way back in the 1990s.
Okay, so let's quickly trace that journey. It all kicked off in 1996 with MEASAT-1. This was a big deal, a communications satellite that was absolutely crucial for getting TV and internet to the whole country. Fast forward to 2000, and we get Tiongsaat-1, their first real step into scientific Earth observation. Then, of course, the moment everyone remembers, 2007, the first Angkasawan in space. And just a few years ago, in 2019, they pulled it all together, forming the Malaysian Space Agency, or MYSA.
Now, the satellites were the workhorses, the practical backbone of the whole thing. But let's be real. It was sending a person, a Malaysian, into orbit that really truly captured the country's imagination. That was the moment that put Malaysia on the global space map.
So this Angkasawan Program in 2007, it was a massive achievement. It sent Dr. Sheikh Muszaphar Shukor all the way to the International Space Station, and he wasn't just a tourist. He was up there conducting some really important experiments on things like cancer cells and protein crystallization in microgravity. And here's a wild little detail. The whole mission was actually part of a defense deal with Russia. But you know what its biggest impact was? Right here at home. It just lit a fire under a whole generation of young Malaysians, getting them excited about science and tech. Okay, so sending an astronaut to space is incredibly inspiring, for sure. But what's the program actually doing for Malaysia day to day? And this right here is where the story gets super compelling. We're talking about real, tangible benefits that you can actually see and feel in everyday life.
Just look at this number. 2.7 billion ringgit. That's how much Malaysia's space program is estimated to have saved the country, mostly thanks to its satellites. I mean, that is a staggering figure, and it pretty much answers the question, is this all worth it? Right off the bat.
So, how on earth did they save that much money? Well, it all comes down to the practical power of having your own eyes in the sky. We're talking about more than 90 government agencies using this satellite data for absolutely critical stuff, like predicting terrible floods by literally watching river levels from space, or boosting food security by checking on the health of rice paddies from orbit. They can even spot illegal logging operations deep in the rainforests. I mean, this isn't sci-fi, this is just smart, modern governance.
Okay, let's be real here. This whole journey has not been a smooth ride. It wasn't just a straight shot to the moon, so to speak. Like any big, ambitious national project, Malaysia's space program has hit some serious bumps in the road, including some pretty significant hurdles and really costly failures.
Basically, you can break the challenges down into 4 key areas. First up, money. The budget is super tight. We're talking just 10 million ringgit for 2024. Then, you've got a people problem, a shortage of skilled engineers, and that classic brain drain issue. Third, the tech itself is risky. You always have the chance of a catastrophic failure. And finally, there's the public perception piece. Trying to convince everyone that spending money on space is a better idea than spending it somewhere else.
And if you want a perfect example of one of those technical failures, just look at RiZaksat back in 2009. This was supposed to be a high-resolution observation satellite, but it basically stopped working shortly after it got into orbit. Ouch. That was a painful setback, and it cost the country over 140 million ringgit. It's a tough lesson in just how high-risk, high-reward this whole space tech game really is.
But despite all those challenges, Malaysia is not backing down. In fact, it's looking ahead, and it's thinking big. The government has set this incredibly ambitious goal for its space economy, aiming for the year 2030. And that brings us right back to the big question. Is this investment really, truly worth all the risk?
So let's just picture what that ambition looks like.
By 2030, the plan is for the space industry to be pumping 10 billion ringgit into the GDP. That's billion with a B. On top of that, creating 5,000 high-skilled jobs and nurturing a whole ecosystem of 500 space-related companies. I mean, this is a plan to completely transform the program from just a government service into a real, powerful economic engine.
Okay, so let's just lay it all out. Cost versus benefit. On one hand, the costs. You've got those tight budgets, the ever-present risk of another expensive failure like MYSAT, and the constant need to spend on developing talent. But then, on the other hand, look at the benefits. You've got the 2.7 billion that's already been saved, the huge potential of a 10 billion ringgit industry, thousands of great jobs, and something you can't really put a price on, national security and sovereignty over your own data.
So when you weigh all that, the conclusion is pretty clear. The benefits are already winning. They've already outweighed the costs. This means Malaysia's space program isn't just some nice-to-have luxury anymore. It's seen as absolutely vital infrastructure for the country's future, for security, for the economy, and for just being resilient in the modern world.
And that leaves us not with a simple answer, but with a much sharper question for the future. See, it's not really about if Malaysia should have a space program anymore. The real question is this: will the country actually commit? Will it invest enough to unlock all that potential and make those huge 2030 goals a reality? Well, that's the big question that's still waiting for an answer.